Today, I'm going to be looking at the fascinating world of heart rate variability. I'm going to be talking about what it is, how it works, and most importantly, how it can significantly improve your health and performance. The study found in the American Journal of Cardiology, they found that people that have low HRVs generally have a higher risk of developing heart disease and even hypertension and sudden cardiac death. Most people don't really know what their heart rate variability is doing, and they're just judging by how they actually feel. And oftentimes when you have big deadlines, it can be quite hard to just go by just how you feel, and having an indicator like a heart rate variability is a great way to sort of monitor your health. Using breathing patterns or breathing exercises can actually improve your heart rate variability. I think you need to start with the basics, and if you want to push to the next level, then this is where heart rate variability can be a game changer for you. Welcome back to Peak Performance Hacks, and here's the place where we help you stay focused, energized, and on top of your game. And I'm your host, Dr. Gan. Today, I'm going to be looking at the fascinating world of heart rate variability, also known as HRV. I'm going to be talking about what it is, how it works, and most importantly, how it can significantly improve your health and performance. So what is your heart rate variability? Essentially, if you look at your heart and you measure it by looking at the electrical impulses, and one way to measure it is with a ECG or an electrocardiogram, you find that the impulses that are not fired at the same time each time. So for example, if you measure an ECG and you look at the hour intervals between your ECG, they can be fired at potentially sometimes even 1.2 seconds and sometimes even 0.8 seconds. So what actually affects this variability, which then gives you a heart rate variability, is based on multiple factors. It's usually controlled by your autonomic nervous system, which includes your sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. Now, one easy way to think about it is when you think of your sympathetic nervous system, it's almost a fight or flight reaction. So when your sympathetic drive is high, oftentimes your heart rate is higher and you're excited or you're scared or you're anxious about something. And when your parasympathetic is high, oftentimes this is when you're resting, you're relaxing, you're even digesting food, and even doing activities such as meditation. So the autonomic nervous system based on your sympathetic and parasympathetic is almost like a balancing act, whereby you're trying to get both of them at the right levels. Having too much of your sympathetic is not a good thing, and having too much of your parasympathetic as well is not a very good thing. Now, having high sympathetic drive will lead to chronic stress and eventually burnout, which is another topic that I'll be talking about in a later episode. So we know that the heart rate variability is controlled by factors such as your autonomic nervous system, but there are also other factors that can affect it. Now, the other factors include your age. As you get older, your HRV generally goes down. Gender makes a difference as well. If you're a female, you have higher heart rate variabilities, especially around the reproductive age group as well. And there's a huge hormonal influence increasing the heart rate variability. What are the other factors that can affect your heart rate variability? Include the amount of exercise that you do. Generally, if you're actually exercising about 150 minutes a week of moderate activity, this will slowly increase your heart rate variability. Then you have nutrition. If you're actually eating food that actually stimulates you in a good way versus taking stimulants such as alcohol or recreational drugs, which often can even reduce your heart rate variability. Then is the amount of sleep that you're actually getting. So if you're sleeping for longer periods and you're getting a healthy amount of sleep, which is uninterrupted, this can also help your heart rate variability. Now, stress often reduces your heart rate variability. So if you're quite stressed, you'll find that your heart rate variability actually goes down. Also, when you're sick or you have some form of illness, you'll find that your heart rate variability goes down. Now, what are the benefits of having a good heart rate variability? The first one, and this was a study found in the American Journal of Cardiology, is that they found that people that have low HRVs or heart rate variabilities generally have a higher risk of developing heart disease and even hypertension and sudden cardiac death. The other important factor of having a good HRV is that it helps with emotional regulation. People that have higher HRVs generally are more resilient and also tend to not suffer from certain conditions such as anxiety, chronic stress, and even depression. Another great place where HRV has shown a lot of benefits is for people that are either professional athletes, or if you're actually aiming for a athletic performance or improving your athletic performance, HRV can be a great indicator, because when your HRV is high, it then allows you to actually push yourself a little bit harder and train harder. And when your HRV levels are low, it may be that you need more recovery, and it's also a sign that your body needs to rest. Now, the great part about this is that when your HRV is low, you then don't push yourself as hard, and essentially it allows you to recover, and you got less chances of developing any illnesses as well. And oftentimes I think that's a big factor, because most people don't really know what their heart rate variability is doing, and they're just judging by how they actually feel. And oftentimes when you have big deadlines, it can be quite hard to just go by just how you feel, and having an indicator like a heart rate variability is a great way to sort of monitor your health. So we've discussed what it is. We've discussed some of the benefits, including your heart health, emotional regulation, and also used for athletic performance. So, how can you actually improve your HRV? Now, I've already mentioned a few factors such as gender and age that you can't actually control. But the things that you can control is getting moderate amounts of exercise, about 150 minutes a week. We've spoken about nutrition, eating well, avoiding stimulants. We've also spoken about getting enough sleep. And stress reduction is a big factor, especially when it comes to heart rate variability. And it's something that if you want to get ahead of, is probably the first place I would start. Mind you, the importance of sleep, nutrition, and even exercise or movement is very important. But in order to sort of control how your heart rate can vary, and also monitor it, and have sort of the ability to look at the changes while you're doing it, one way to do it is to control your stress management. And ways to do this is by doing mindfulness practices, meditation, yoga, and just getting in that position whereby you increase your parasympathetic activity and you reduce your sympathetic activity. Now, again, if you're planning to start it, where would I start? The first thing I would do is, for most people, they can't go and get an ECG, and they can't do it regularly anyways. So I don't think that's the best way to actually monitor your heart rate variability. But you can often use what you already have. Now, if you wear an Apple Watch or a Garmin or a Samsung, you can use them to kind of monitor your heart rate variability. But what I have found is that by using these devices, they're not that accurate. Also, you can use certain apps to basically monitor your heart rate variability, because it calculates it for you, so you don't have to manually try to calculate it. The easiest way I feel, which I found was the best way to do it, is I actually got myself a chest heart strap. I use a Polar H10. I also use it for running, so kind of use it for two different reasons. But most of the time, I actually use it to calculate my heart rate variability. And you can use some apps which are free out there, and I will leave some of the apps that I've used in the past, and they will measure your heart rate variability, telling you what it is for the day. The best way to start is when you wake up in the morning, test it when you get out of bed. So pop on the heart strap, turn on the app, and essentially take a couple of deep breaths for 3 to 5 minutes, and it will calculate or give you a snapshot of what your heart rate variability is. As I mentioned earlier, during the day, your heart rate variability will change depending on the amount of stresses you've had, and it'll be very different at the end of the day as well. But this is one way to sort of monitor it, to know whether you're trending in the right direction or not. Now, after you've managed to use these apps, or you're actually looking at your heart rate variability, using breathing patterns or breathing exercises can actually improve your heart rate variability. So what you may find is, when you start actually monitoring it and actually looking at the readings or the findings, you might find that your heart rate variability is actually quite low. You might be thinking, how am I going to improve this? You can improve it, as I mentioned, with the breathing exercises. You can also improve it with exercising as well, and recovering as well. Now, there are other ways you can actually monitor it. There's the Aura Ring, and there's also the Whoop, which is a paid app that you use. I'm actually using it on my hand right now. And again, I don't think everyone needs to go out and purchase this, or pay for a subscription. I think you can get away by just monitoring your own HRV and using one of the free apps. Now, we do know that people with higher HRVs are actually a lot healthier. And when it comes down to your cardiac health, your emotional regulation, and also pain and other syndromes and other medical issues, HRV is usually when you have these medical conditions, your HRV is a lot lower. So having a good HRV will not only help with your health, but also will help with your performance. And it's not something that happens immediately, but I would like to say that, as I've mentioned earlier, without taking care of the basics, there is no point of measuring your heart rate variability. So you can get, if your sleep is bad and you know this, and if you're quite stressed, your nutrition is bad and you're not exercising, there is no reason to actually start going out there, getting a chest strap and measuring this. I think you need to start with the basics. And if you want to push to the next level, then this is where heart rate variability can be a game changer for you. This wraps up this episode of Peak Performance Hacks. All the links and resources are in the video description or in the resource section, whether it is on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider subscribing. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a review so that more people can discover our podcast and it could benefit them as well. Until I catch you next time, speak soon.